Thanks, folks, for hanging on for the last presentation of the show. I'll leave it over to Mark.
Thank you. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the new updated PFOS guidelines we have for fish consumption. Our end is much easier than Rebecca and her group. We just get all the numbers after. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the background of the update. I'm going to tell anybody that doesn't know a little bit about the Great Lakes Consortium for fish consumption advisories. Going to go through the best practices PFOS recommendations that they put out last year that Department of Health adopted. Those were heavily influenced by the EPA's toxicity review of PFOS. There are some additional considerations the Department of Health and the Great Lakes Consortium took into account that EPA did not. Then I'm going to go over quickly just the rollout of how everything was done, presented to the constituents in New York, and then what that means for our water bodies. So once we had the new guidelines, everybody had signed off on it, Department of Health had accepted it, we went back and reassessed all of our previous data. So we had 169 species water body combinations that we went back through to see if they needed to be have their new advisories or change the existing advisories based on the new guidelines. So the Great Lakes Consortium, it's a group of professionals from health, water, fisheries agencies, anybody that is around the Great Lakes. So that includes 8 states, the province of Ontario in Canada, and 2 indigenous groups. It was formed in the early 80s, unofficially, just as scientists wanted to share data, coordinate sampling efforts so they don't duplicate things. The way a lot of things kind of in environmental research go, we figure out what we need and then hopefully the higher-ups finally realize that. In 1986 it was formally established and they were tasked with the goal to get uniform advisories for the Great Lakes. It's hard enough to get across to anglers if you have just one set of advisories, but could you imagine if you had 11 different groups telling you all different things? So that was really the necessity of it. And then on 2025, the Great Lakes Consortium, again, the hodgepodge of all these groups, they wrote their best practices for PFOS guidelines, which is what New York State adopted. And pretty much, like I said, the majority of that work came from new research that was outlined in EPA's toxicity review. And they went through and they described all of the updated animal toxicity data, human epidemiology studies, and it was more or less to characterize the non-cancer and cancer endpoints. And they had 5 priority category outcomes: cancer, hepatic, development, cardiovascular, and immune. The Great Lakes Consortium looked at the non-cancer endpoints. So their 2 main categories they looked at were developmental and cardiovascular. So in developmental, it was decreased birth weight. In cardiovascular, it was increased cholesterol. And the graph to the right is taken right from their work. And more or less what we have here is we have the different categories, and then I circled the development in cardiovascular, and I put stars next to the 2 studies that the Great Lakes Consortium relied on heavily. And what they show is that the reference dose are the solid circles, and for us that was about 0.1 nanograms per kilogram per day. And there's also a point of departure, that is the open circles. So the point of departure is about an order of magnitude higher, and the Great Lakes Consortium decided that they were not going to use the reference dose, and they were going to use the point of departure, the human equivalent dose. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is, as you can see, in 2016, the reference dose was 20 nanograms per kilogram per day. That went down to 0.1. So if we changed our advisories 200-fold, you would not eat fish. There just wouldn't really be any fish. Pretty much it would have to be a non-detect. And even then, some of those would still be higher than what we would be allowing. And the biggest reason for that switch is that EPA doesn't take into consideration the nutritional benefits of fish consumption. And we all know, you hear all the time, omega-3 fatty acids, you know, you have different vitamins there, proteins, amino acids, micronutrients. All of these things are very beneficial to us as we eat fish, so if we take that out of our diet, we're impeding more or less our own health. And it's actually very interesting because omega-3 fatty acids and PFOS have very similar structure. They're a long hydrophobic carbon chain with a terminal acidic group. And it's been found that all the things where PFOS is detrimental, main things like, say, fetal development, immune function, lipid metabolism, and liver toxicity, omega-3 fatty acids have beneficial effects for all of those same things. One of the other things that was adjusted for the Great Lakes Consortium report was average body weight went from 70 kilograms to 80 kilograms. That's just a fact of where society is. And they also took into consideration bioavailability or bioaccessibility. And this came from 3 main studies of anglers. So they looked at a population that's going to be eating a lot of fish. They did a calculated blood serum concentration for what they'd expect, and then they had the measured concentration. And they found that the measured concentration was 3 to 4 times lower than what's expected. So it's kind of right there, there's some anecdotal evidence showing that, you know, there might be true competition for some of these lipid binding sites. So the more omega-3s you have, you fill up those sites, less PFOS are able to be bioaccumulated in the body. And then we have relative source contribution was considered, but it was not applied here. So once you figure out all the things you're going to, you set your standards, now it's pretty much a plug and play. So to do this, we just go through our calculation here at the bottom. You have your human protection value, which we said was going to be 1 nanogram per kilogram. That's the point of departure, the human equivalent dose. The body weight is going to be 80 kilograms. Your consumption rate is down here at 4, so it's going to tell you, depending on if it's 1 meal a week, 1 meal a month, whatever. We even have a category in here, 2 meals per week. You plug all that in, along with a 25% bioavailability factor, and then we come out with our new categories. So you can see that 4 meals per month is somewhere between 5 and 10 parts per billion. Used to be 50. 1 meal per month is 10 to 40, used to be 200. And anything over 40 is don't eat. So to give you a little idea of what other states have their limits at, we just have, again, the 1 meal per month and then the do not eat, so that's 10 and 40 for us. You can see that, for 1 meal per month, values for other states range anywhere from about 8 to 136, and for don't eat, it's 31 to 408. So there's a lot of variability in there, depending on the information that each state is utilizing. We feel that New York is kind of taking helping take the lead on this. We're going strictly by what the data says and the information we have. So once we decided that, all right, everybody signed off at Department of Health, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be 10 and 40, not 50 and 200 anymore. Now, how do we roll this out? So it came with a press release online and then a fax document online. Fax document talked about the different fish and toxicity data that were included in this. Things like what differed from Department of Health and EPA, which the 2 biggest things there are, EPA doesn't actually give any guidelines for freshwater fish consumption, only saltwater. So there is no EPA guideline for freshwater fish. And like I said, they don't take into account the nutritional benefits of eating fish. So those are the 2 biggest differences between them. People are usually curious, why are concentrations different for fish and water? Well, hopefully, if you're hydrated, you're drinking a lot more water than you are fish, so the concentration is going to be much lower. And then one of the things, too, with this being lowered, what really is driving our advisories? Is it PFOS now? Is it mercury? Is it PCBs? It's still mercury and PCBs, primarily because that's what we have the most data on. So Rebecca went over You know, it's really only been the last 10 years or so that PFOS has really been consistently sampled, and it's really at this point trying to find out, locate all of those major contaminated areas first, and then it'll kind of go into some of the other water bodies. So that may change in the future. We're just going to have to see as time goes on. And then what does all of this mean for our water bodies that we had? So like I said, we had just under 2,500 specimens that we could use. It was 169 species to water body combinations for the criteria that we require. And that's a sample size of 4 or greater, and they have to be legal sized fish, so the fish that we're going to take home and eat. Out of those, we had 49 advisory changes or new advisories. 21 being do not eats, 28 1 meal per month, and then there was another 61 that already had adequate advisories on them, and 59 that did not require any advisories at all. So it was roughly about a third, and a third. A third of new advisories, a third already had adequate advisories, and about a third didn't need any new advisories. This is similar to the graph that Rebecca showed, and thank you to Lauren Rose who made this for us. The biggest difference here is our bins. So we have just the regular stoplight. Green is good, it's less than 10, that's 4 meals per month. The yellow is 10 to 40, so that's 1 meal per month. And then the red is do not eat. And for us, most of our reds, as Rebecca pointed out, they come from the aqueous film forming foam that firefighters use. Pretty much any areas that you see these numbers and you think maybe did a decimal get moved, no, they are real. And when you start looking, it's usually, like Rebecca said, a military facility, a training facility, something like that, where these AFFs are commonly used. But there are also other sources. Landfills can be a source. Wastewater treatment facilities can be a source. But the red ones are typically a point source that we can identify. So really quickly, just to recap, like I said, Department of Health adopted the updated PFOS guidelines of 10 and 40 this past year based on the Great Lakes Consortium work, which focused primarily on the EPA toxicity review. We changed from using the oral reference dose to the point of departure human equivalent dose. We added a bioaccessibility factor of 25% and we increased the body weight from 70 to 80 kilograms. And when we did our reassessment, like I said, we have 49 new PFOS advisories, 61 current advisories that were sufficiently adequate, and then 59 did not require any new advice. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have.